Am I the ATIA for refusing to come clean and ruining my ex-husband's relationship? I never thought I'd be the one to ruin my ex-husband's relationship. But here I am, sitting in my kitchen at 2 a.m., staring at my phone, rereading the message his new fiancé sent me just hours ago. I know something's off. He shuts down whenever your name comes up. Please, tell me the truth. The truth. That word felt like a knife in my chest, because the truth could shatter everything. His new engagement, his picture-perfect future, the way everyone around him believes he's this great man who finally moved on, and I'm the only one holding it. The worst part, I wasn't the one who caused the suspicion. He did. He left crumbs. He kept pieces of me in their relationship, little slips of words, old habits, secret looks that she noticed. And now she came to me for answers, and I refused. I typed back, "I don't know what you're talking about." Then I turned my phone off and shoved it into the drawer. But lying there in the dark, I couldn't shake the image of her face if she ever found out what I really knew. Because if she did, everything he built would come crashing down. And the terrifying part? A small, cruel part of me wanted that to happen. It wasn't always like this. Let me back up. My ex-husband and I were married for 7 years. 7 long, messy years filled with highs that felt like heaven and lows that made me feel like I was drowning. When we divorced, everyone thought it was because we grew apart. That's the story he sold. But the truth was far darker. Truths I buried because I didn't want to look like the bitter ex. At first, I stayed out of his life. I even told myself I was happy he had moved on when I saw pictures of him with her. She looked sweet, kind, the type of woman who believed in fairy tales. I almost pitied her because I knew she was stepping into something she didn't fully understand. But then things started happening that pulled me back into their world whether I liked it or not. The first was when she accidentally called me. My number was still in his phone under emergency contact, something he never bothered to change. She must have hit dial without meaning to, but I heard her voice in the background asking him why he still had me listed that way. He laughed it off, but I heard the edge in her voice. The second was when I found out he'd been telling her things about me that weren't true, things that made me look unstable, obsessed, like I was still hung up on him. I only knew because one of her friends reached out to me, out of pity, I guess, and told me. That's when I realized he hadn't really left me behind. He'd woven me into his new life as the shadow villain, the problem he could use to explain away his own flaws. And the third, and maybe the worst, was when he slipped up himself. I was dropping off some paperwork at his place for something legal we still had tied together, and as he handed it to me, he looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You know I'll always come back to you." Then he froze, like he didn't mean to say it out loud, but I'd heard it, and judging by the look on her fiancé's face, standing just a few feet away, so had she. She laughed nervously and brushed it off, but I could tell something broke inside her that night. Now, weeks later, her message sat burned into my brain. She was asking me to come clean, to tell her what really happened between me and my ex-husband, to confirm her worst fears. And I refused, because telling her would mean admitting things I'd buried for years. It would mean dragging myself back into his twisted web. But by staying silent, I knew I was letting her walk blind into the same storm I had barely survived. And the guilt of that silence was eating me alive. That night, after ignoring her message, I went to bed thinking maybe things would calm down, that maybe she'd drop it. But the next morning, something happened that made me realize this situation wasn't going away. Because when I logged onto social media, the first post I saw was an engagement announcement, hers. And staring back at me was a ring I recognized all too well. The exact same ring he once promised me I'd wear forever. I almost dropped my phone when I saw it. That ring, the same one he'd slipped onto my finger years ago, whispering promises of forever. The ring I had taken off the night I left him, swearing I would never look back. And now it was on her hand. For a moment, I convinced myself maybe it wasn't the same. Maybe I was imagining it. But I wasn't. I knew every curve, every tiny flaw in the band, even the way the diamond sat slightly crooked in the setting. It was the exact ring he once promised me the world with. And he had recycled it. I felt sick, not just because it was disrespectful, but because of what it meant. He had told me back then that he chose that ring because it was unique, just like us. And now here it was, passed off to someone else, carrying the same empty words. I didn't want to care. I didn't want to feel anything, but the truth burned inside me. He was building a new life with her on the ashes of mine. And the worst part? She had no idea. All day, I couldn't shake the image of her smiling face, showing off the ring like it was the beginning of something beautiful. My phone buzzed constantly, friends sending me the post, whispering, "Isn't that?" Some even laughed, but all I felt was dread, because I knew what was coming. That night, she messaged me again. This time, it wasn't gentle or pleading. It was sharp, almost panicked. "Please, tell me the truth. I can't get rid of this feeling. I need to know what he's hiding." I sat there staring at the screen, my hands shaking. I typed out 3 different replies. In one, I told her everything. In another, I told her to leave me alone. In the third, I just wrote, "Ask him." But I didn't send any of them. I couldn't. Instead, I turned my phone face down and poured myself a drink. The silence in my apartment felt louder than ever. I told myself this wasn't my problem anymore. She wasn't my responsibility. If she chose to marry him, that was her mistake to make. But then, just when I thought I could bury it all again, something happened that forced me right back into the fire. 2 days later, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, she was standing there. Her eyes red from crying, her hands shaking, and on her finger, that damn ring. She looked at me like I was the only person who could save her. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Just tell me, am I crazy, or is there something I need to know?" And in that moment, I realized my silence wasn't just protecting me anymore. It was destroying her. She stood in my doorway, trembling, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I saw myself in her. The same hollow look, the same fear sitting just under her skin. I didn't want to feel sympathy. I wanted to slam the door and pretend none of this was happening. But I couldn't. Not when she looked like she was about to break apart right there in front of me. "Please," she said again, her voice cracking. "I can't sleep. I can't eat. I feel like I'm losing my mind. He swears everything's fine, that I'm overthinking, but every time I bring you up..." She choked back a sob. "He shuts down. Why? Why does your name scare him so much?" Her desperation hit me like a punch to the chest. I motioned for her to come inside, though every part of me screamed that this was a mistake. She sat at my table, twisting the ring on her finger over and over, like she was trying to break free from it, but couldn't. "I'm not trying to ruin your life," I said carefully. "But are you sure you want to know?" "Yes," she whispered, her eyes locking on mine. "Because I think he's lying to me, and if I marry him like this, I'll never forgive myself." My stomach twisted. This was it, the moment I'd been dreading, the moment my silence shattered. But instead of laying everything bare, the words came out in fragments. "At first, it was good," I admitted. "He can be charming, can't he? He makes you feel like you're the only person in the world." She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "But then it changes, slowly. He starts rewriting things, making you question yourself, convincing you that your memory is wrong, that you're too sensitive, that everything bad is somehow your fault." Her lip trembled. "He does that to me." I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. "It doesn't stop there. He'll tell people things about you, things that aren't true. He'll make sure they see you as unstable, so if you ever try to tell the truth, no one believes you." Her face crumpled. She pressed her hands to her mouth, shaking her head as if trying to block out my words. But I could see it, the recognition, the puzzle pieces falling into place. Then she whispered something that made my blood run cold. He told me you tried to hurt yourself because you couldn't let him go, that you're obsessed with him. That's why I thought maybe you'd make something up, just to..." She broke off, her voice cracking. "But now I don't know what's real." The room went silent. My heart pounded in my ears. He hadn't just painted me as unstable. He'd painted me as dangerous. And she believed him. Until now. Before I could answer, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, and her face drained of color. "It's him," she whispered. "He's been tracking my location. He knows I'm here." And that's when the pounding started on my door. The pounding rattled the frame, each slam louder than the last. She froze in her chair, wide-eyed, her hands gripping the edge of my table so tight her knuckles went white. I felt the old fear crawl up my spine, the same fear I thought I buried years ago. "Open the door," his voice thundered through the wood. "I know she's in there." She eyes darted to me, pleading, terrified. "What do we do?" she whispered. I wanted to tell her to stay calm, to breathe, to trust me. But the truth was, I didn't know. My heart was racing so fast it hurt. I could already picture the look on his face, that carefully controlled mask slipping into something darker. "Don't say a word," I whispered back. The pounding stopped. Silence stretched thick and heavy, like the air before a storm. Then his voice dropped, lower, sharper. "You think you can poison her against me? You think I don't know what you're doing?" She flinched, tears spilling down her cheeks. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand, trying to anchor her. My own hands were trembling. Then, suddenly, the doorknob rattled. He was trying to force his way in. That snapped me into motion. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 with shaking fingers. "My ex-husband is trying to break into my apartment," I hissed into the receiver, my eyes never leaving the door. As I gave the dispatcher my address, I could hear him pacing outside, muttering to himself. And then, clear as day, he said it. "She's nothing without me. Neither are you." The words cut deeper than I expected, because I remembered he used to say the same thing to me when we were married. Late at night, when arguments spiraled and I tried to leave, he'd corner me, whisper it like a curse. "You're nothing without me." Now, he was saying it to both of us. Minutes stretched like hours. Finally, the sound of sirens grew closer, and his footsteps retreated down the hall. I exhaled shakily, my chest aching from how tightly I'd been holding my breath. When the police arrived, he was gone. They took our statements, nodding in that detached way officers do, promising to file a report and keep an eye out. But I knew better. I knew he wouldn't let this go. After they left, she sat curled up on my couch, her face pale, her body trembling. "I can't marry him," she whispered, almost to herself. "I can't, but I don't know how to get out. He'll destroy me." Her words hit me hard, because that was exactly how I used to feel, and the sickening realization washed over me. History was repeating itself, only this time, I wasn't sure I could save her. The days after the police visit felt like living on borrowed time. She stayed with me, too afraid to go back to him. Every noise outside made her jump. Every vibration of her phone sent her spiraling. I was right there with her, because I knew him. I knew how he worked. He wouldn't vanish quietly. He'd wait. He'd plan. Then it happened. It was late evening. I was making tea in the kitchen when her scream tore through the apartment. My heart stopped. I dropped the mug, glass shattering, and ran into the living room. She was standing at the window, her phone in her hand, shaking uncontrollably. He sent me this, she stammered, thrusting the screen at me. It was a photo of us, taken through my living room window. I felt the world tilt. The timestamp was from 5 minutes ago. He was outside, watching us. Before I could even react, a crash shook the apartment. The front door slammed open, splintering at the lock. And there he was. His eyes burned with fury, his smile twisted, cold. "You think you can hide from me?" he snarled, stepping inside like he still owned the place. She clung to me, sobbing, as he closed the distance. My body moved before my mind could catch up. I grabbed the nearest object, a heavy lamp, and held it between us. My voice shook, but I forced the words out. "Stay back. I called the police." He laughed. Actually laughed. "The police? They don't care. They never did." He pointed at her, his voice rising. "You think she's yours now? You think you can take her from me, just like you tried to take everything else?" "I didn't take anything," I spat, though my hands trembled on the lamp. That broke him. He lunged. The next few seconds were chaos. He grabbed for me, knocking the lamp to the floor. I shoved him back with every ounce of strength I had, screaming for her to run. She bolted for the kitchen, fumbling for the back door. He turned on her, rage flashing in his eyes, but I threw myself between them, clawing, fighting, desperate. And then sirens, red and blue lights flickering through the window. The front door burst open again, this time with officers flooding in, shouting commands, dragging him back as he kicked and cursed. His eyes locked on me, even as they pulled him away, and he hissed words I'll never forget. "This isn't over." Then he was gone. The apartment fell silent except for our ragged breathing. She collapsed against me, sobbing, and I held her, though my own body shook with fear. The officers promised he'd be taken in, that charges would be filed, but all I could think about was his face, the certainty in his eyes when he said it wasn't over, because deep down, I knew he meant it. For weeks, things were quiet, too quiet. She moved out of her apartment, filed for a restraining order, tried to piece her life back together. I thought maybe, just maybe, we'd finally escaped him. Then one morning, I opened my front door, and there it was. A plain cardboard box sitting neatly on the mat. No return address, no markings, just my name scrawled across the top in his handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside wasn't a weapon or a letter or anything I expected. Just one item, a wedding invitation. His wedding invitation. To her, dated 2 months from now. And scribbled across the bottom in red ink were 5 words that made my blood run cold. "See you at the ceremony.